Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of June 25th, 2015. I am your host, Jose Otero, and this is IGN's Nintendo Show. Joining me this week, Kallie Plagge.
Hello.
Back from E3 and excited as ever to talk about a bunch of her experience there. And also, once again, Brian Altano. This week, we are a man down with Pear, but he will be back next week to join us on the show.
Where is he? Is he post E3 plague?
He's on a business trip, is all I can really say. Yeah. But what we can talk about is just to kind of round out our thoughts on E3. And Kallie, I wanted to kick it off with your E3 experience. Why don't we talk a little bit about sort of what games you enjoyed at the show, which Nintendo games sort of caught your eye, and maybe even what you thought of their digital event.
Yeah, I didn't have as much time to walk the show floor as I did when I went previously, but I really enjoyed the Super Mario Maker, the World Championships. Like, we were in the war room cheering like it was a sporting event, watching that. And you guys might have, because it was Nintendo, you were probably on the live show, but yeah, we were all gathered around a computer just cheering, and that's the moment I said, I need this game, because when it's better than sports, I mean, a lot of things are better than sports to me, but like most video games, but that's the moment I was like, I want to get my friends, I want to play this game, I need this game.
Our photographer in the war room sent us some pictures over the weekend of all of us in there, and you could see there are the times we're watching the press conferences and we're just kind of like, oh, cool, oh, or a lot of highs and lows, obviously, but the Mario Maker stuff, seeing our faces during Super Mario Maker, like, I'm a very animated person. A bunch of us were in the room like, arms in the air, fists up, like, no, like, there's so much, like, it's just such a roller coaster watching that kind of stuff. So yeah, well, I'm really excited for it.
The energy level is communicated really well, because just like the person playing in the Nintendo World Championships, you didn't quite know what was coming next.
Right.
And I do think it was really smart to sort of put the other player in isolation so that they didn't know just how, like, I wonder if any sound even got through some of those headphones or if they were able to sneak a peek, but regardless, like, the reception to that game in those moments were palpable, right? Yeah. Like, you were just in the room. So I wasn't there when you guys watched it. I was actually working on a bunch of stuff, side stuff, but I did watch it after the fact this past weekend, and I was very impressed with sort of how they sort of handled it. Like, I think it was a really smart showcase for it. And we've talked about it on the show before. Like, they did the same thing in Japan with a local show there called Game Center CX. You might be familiar with that.
Yes, I know the show,
yeah, and there was an event where they basically, it wasn't the same exact thing, but it was kind of cool because Miyamoto went on stage to play someone else's levels and saw just how much of a challenge that could be. Cool. Any other games sort of that you played that stand out?
I had a chance to play Yoshi's Woolly World,
which talk about that.
I just think Yoshi is freaking adorable. I could just admire how cute that yarn Yoshi is for the rest of my life. I want all three of the amiibos. Like, I need to have them. They had a display case. For anybody who doesn't know, they had a display case of all the upcoming amiibo, and I took a bunch of pictures of those because just so cute. And they had the classic Mario version, like the pixelated Mario amiibo.
They were really cool looking, right?
Yeah, really cool.
That display case was like, man, this kind of justifies my addiction a little bit. These things look really good. It was also like, damn, I'm bummed I'll never have something like this in my house.
Right, yeah. I don't have a huge amiibo case. I don't have room for that. But.
Yeah, well, your wife's going to have a lot to say about that the day you try to pitch it, I think.
I threw out the bed over the weekend, and I replaced it with just a huge glowing table for all my amiibo. That's not true.
The bed is surrounded by amiibo?
No bed.
No.
It's not good.
I would be at City Hall with divorce papers if that happened.
You got rid of your bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to play that. I played it with Katie, who's an editorial designer at IGN, and it was really loud, so we couldn't hear the instructions, or like, because the woman who was presenting it to us gave us kind of like, here's how you do this, and
they give you a vague overview.
We kind of like fumbled our way through the game, but it was fun. And
so you guys played co-op?
Yeah, we played co-op.
That's how I played it too. I haven't really played it single player yet. I think maybe I did it at E3 last year. Co-op is really interesting because it's got that sort of new Super Mario Brothers feel to it, where when a player dies, they do come back kind of in that bubble, but it's like that yarn ball.
It's very reminiscent.
Since it's Yoshi, you can swallow up a second player and then just kind of run through the whole level and shoot them out randomly. Yeah. So you get that sort of like push and pull of being a good guy and also being evil.
Oh yeah, she was totally trolling me the whole time. She I don't know what not sucking you in because that's Kirby, but she ate me basically and then just kind of ran. I was like, dude, what am I supposed to do now?
I was discovering that there's no good way to to explain what's happening when another Yoshi puts you in their mouth.
there's no like safe for work way to explain
not
that.
At all. There's no good way to say that.
I had to tell my mom on the phone, like, this is what I did at work. Yeah, so
we need to have a talk.
she'd be like, Callie, what are you doing with your life? But I also think Poochie is super adorable.
Oh yeah, like really good.
I need a Poochie amiibo. I don't know. I feel like I know I shouldn't say that because
they'll make one.
I've heard that the Yarn Yoshi amiibo are not only. I mean, it's out in Australia today as of this recording, and they're both very nice, but also kind of expensive over there. I think they said something like $25.
Wow,
I think I
really?
saw someone said. I think that's what I saw on Twitter.
Man.
25 Australian dollars or American dollars?
Aussie bucks.
Yeah,
I have no
everything's
idea.
expensive over there.
Australian currency.
Interesting.
But regardless, that I'm curious what they're priced here, and I'm not sure if that information is out yet.
I think they're doing smart stuff with Yoshi in that, and you probably picked this up playing it, but it's definitely got that sort of you could probably coast through every level in the game fairly easily, but there's all that sort of like metagame stuff like collectibles. There's those yarn spools and everything like that I think you can use to unlock Miiverse stamps and extra costumes and all this other. And that's the kind of stuff like I really get into because it's like I can play that game with my wife, and I will like I always tell her like, hey, you have to take one for the team, and I'll take her and like in the game throw her at an item and then she dies. But like we get it, we go on to the next thing. So it's very much like I got a lot of new Super Mario Brothers vibes to it from it.
Very much, yeah.
And I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and I think they also do cute things with the yarn animations. Like when you shoot a ball of yarn at like a rotating, it's kind of like a pinwheel shaped thing, and then it becomes a platform that you can jump on.
Right, they had
cool
those
animation.
They're like windmills, right?
Yeah. So I really appreciate little details like that, and they really take the theme to that level that I would expect them to as Nintendo. They really like go all out with the yarn theme, and I do like that they ramp it up with you could just kind of coast through the levels, enjoy the cuteness of the game, play it casually with someone who doesn't play games as intensely as you might. And then you can go unlock those Miiverse stamps and go back and do that stuff. And I think we've seen that from Nintendo with I mean, like.
Are you one of those like completionist people?
Oh yeah.
You're gonna say crazy people.
I was gonna say crazy completionist
I heard
people.
that.
Yeah.
I pumped the brakes. I will say it again. Are you one of those crazy completionist people? Because I
100%.
absolutely am. I 100% am.
I spent an entire
I'm
week.
insane.
I spent a week just playing Majora's Mask so I could do everything.
Really?
I 100%ed that game, and my fingers hurt for like several days after.
Even those beaver races, which was just
I
impossible.
did all of that. That was garbage, and I did all of it.
I know.
That was pretty bad. The
Yeah.
beaver races were not fun the first time, let alone the second. All right.
Yeah.
I was just doing
Anyway.
some price checking, and it's kind of hard to find. At least I'm looking at PlayAsia, and since it's sold out, it doesn't have a price tag there, but there was a bundle for it that came with the game that is really
All
adorable. I mean,
three?
I'll turn it down to you too. No, just that one.
Just the green one.
I think that would be smart.
In his little prison.
That was kind of the same.
It's Yoshi Prison.
Yoshi,
Hey, man,
the plastic prison.
If there was ever a bigger fight to unbox your amiibos, it's that one. Because it's like I don't know how you, with any heart in your body, could let that thing suffocate inside that little box.
It's like in
you
Yoshi's
have to free him.
in Yoshi's
What is
story where
happening
they're
right now?
You keep your amiibo in a box. I take mine out, and you have to free that Yoshi. He's too cute to die in there.
Right, like in Yoshi's story, which isn't a very good Yoshi game, but they have all the Yoshis in like that castle, like
A
that
prison.
tower prison.
Yeah.
But those Yoshi deserve to be there.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
because of that game. No,
But
I'm
this
just
one
kidding.
you gotta free him because
Yeah.
he's so cute.
Yeah.
Like that free him meme where it just says
Right.
free him. You
right.
know.
Yeah. Team unboxed.
Team unbox
Team
your yarn
unbox.
emote.
Okay.
I'm
Yarn
going against you
amiibo.
on this one, Jose.
That's okay. I'm not going to argue with you on it. No, that's fair. I mean, to each his own, I will say. But regardless, these amiibo look adorable. Brian got to hold it. We were very jealous last episode.
I
because
almost didn't put it back.
we were in like the VIP section of Nintendo's booth, or just a closed-off section. Sorry, and the person holding the amiibo basically said, "I'm sorry, but you can only squeeze it. You cannot." Like take it from my hands. I was just like, okay, well, I don't want to do that anyway.
Oh, I got all up in it. I wasn't allowed to do anything. So not only did I get to hold it for a while, but I also had to have our cameraman on our live show reset the shot so that I could incorporate it. And for like 5 minutes, he was like, "Can you play with it a little bit?" And I had it kind of down below the chair I was in.
Doing it wrong.
And then I was like popping it up and making it walk around. I was like, "Yo, what's up? I'm Yoshi." And I was doing like a whole puppet show, and he's like, Can you keep it still a little bit so I can get the camera on it?" And I'm like, I'm just holding it, and I'm like, "I'm keeping this, right?" And they're like, "No, you can't keep it."
Okay, all right.
So it exists. It's beautiful. I want all three.
Sure.
Eventually.
All right. So then final thoughts just on E3 as a whole. I mean, I feel like we've kind of shared our sort of thoughts on Nintendo's successes and failures last episode. If you haven't heard those, you should absolutely check that out because I mean, more than half of the episode is that. But Kallie, just curious, like, what are your final thoughts here with Nintendo's sort of digital event? How'd you feel walking away from that?
Yeah, the digital event, I wasn't sure how to feel about that after it happened because everybody around me was kind of like, what is this? And I was like, oh, this is so Nintendo. This is so weird and cute. And you know, I can't be mad at Nintendo. I just can't. They're so charming. They come out there and they're like, we're puppets. Inexplicably, we're puppets. And I just, at some point you're just going to be like, yeah, they're puppets. I accept this. This is just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, but I did think, I wish that, it's like Metroid's 30th anniversary is coming up, I believe, if I have that correct.
So is Zelda.
And so is Zelda. And, not having anything to commemorate that really, maybe they'll be bringing that next year. I don't know. But that was kind of a shortcoming for me. Just coming out of that and being like, okay, Super Mario Maker's cool. Yeah, we saw that. And what else?
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely feeling a little dissatisfied with the amount of content, but
or just lack of surprise, right?
Right,
like you want to be like, whoa, this is a thing I didn't expect.
I wanted to, do the traditional reaction, guys.
Oh,
like, yeah.
So I was talking about this with Jose a little bit, and tell me if you agree. But I've been, because he doesn't, because that's just the way he is. But
what are you saying? What did I not
throwing
agree
that
on?
shade, with bright light.
I think there's a version of that direct that could have been better had a couple of different sort of elements moved around. Like, had you not done, so first of all, no leaks. So Zelda, the Hyrule Warriors 3DS, not a huge surprise, but a little more icing on the cake in a direct that probably could have used it. All the Smash Brothers stuff leaking, becoming its own thing. I think like that could have been like, I think you take all that stuff, you put it all together, and you cap it off with the Zelda footage, which they told us they had but didn't want to show us. And I think you turn a direct that's like a 6 into a direct that's like a 8.5.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't outright disagree with you. Just for clarity here, like I do think that the Smash Brothers stuff is cool on its own, but knowing how Nintendo approaches E3, that digital event is really usually focused on new games and new footage. And I do feel like the decision for Hyrule Warriors was an odd one because I don't know if that game really won over North America as much as they basically, okay, so Nintendo had an investors shareholders meeting like yesterday or last night our time, and they kind of defended that presentation was focused towards a North American audience, but that game didn't really fit in there, but I guess because we're big Zelda fans, it does.
Right.
But anyway, I don't disagree with you outright, though, is what I want to say.
Yeah, I think if they were trying to appeal to a North American audience, I think they might underestimate how much of their audience likes the Japanese-ness that you can get from stuff. I mean, we've talked about this before.
Japanese-ness.
The Japanese-ness. It's a word.
Japaninity.
You look it up. It's a thing.
I don't think any of those are words.
Not yet, no. But we've talked about it before. Like a lot of the charm comes from the not westernization of a lot of this, and I think they underestimate how much we'd get excited about quirky stuff like that. At least for me, I can't speak for everybody, but I really like stuff like that where I've seen Western things. I know how Western things are. I live here.
Right.
I like to see Nintendo bringing Nintendo. So I wish that they hadn't kind of held back in that way.
And I do think, though, sorry, just really quickly to piggyback that, though, I do think sometimes that can backfire.
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely.
Sharp FE, the Shin Megami Fire Emblem,
was
the token example of like, too Japanese, like too. I told you there's a tweet that's a too many waifu, like in this portion of the direct.
To me, it's always like you
rolls eyes at you.
I did. Oh, sorry, that wasn't me. I don't agree with that statement.
Like it's when you go to a concert. You go to a concert and a band is playing all night and they play that one song that like you love the band, but they're playing that one song that you're like, I don't know that song. I've never heard that song. I don't have any connection to that song. And some people in the crowd are like, yeah, and you're just like, I'm gonna go to the bar during this. Like that's how I feel during all of that kind of stuff where it just gets too eccentric and too Japaninity. Yeah.
Japanesey. That's a really good point. I think maybe that the bridging that gap would be getting less Western with the franchises we do know. Like
Sure.
Mario, Zelda, you don't have to like try to appeal to North Americans. We all know those franchises, right?
Yeah, I think yes and no. I think there is always that expectation that like, and people have been saying it for years. They want that like serious, gritty, mature Zelda, and I don't like. That's
do
never,
not.
To heck with that thinking,
Okay,
man.
Link
Like,
is canonically the hugest dork in the universe. I
Right?
do not need a dark Zelda. He's a huge dork. He's always tripping over things. He's always like
He's goofy.
Hyrule
like,
never changes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what?
No.
He wears pajamas everywhere.
Right.
Like everybody in his town is really just dumb and funny. Like they're all. It's just like a cartoon characters running. Even like Ocarina of Time, people are like, "What a serious, mature game!" Like go to any town in that game and talk to anybody. Like
to
people
literally
are,
anyone.
Yeah, they're all cartoon characters.
But a certain charm does run through all of those villages, right? That doesn't always necessarily come off as weird. It just comes
Right.
off as kind of different or
Yeah.
unique or
Yeah.
just very unique to Hyrule, I want
Right.
to say.
Yeah, I
Sure.
don't need anything like weird, totally outside of the box Japanese where
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, what's happening? This is
Game of Thrones, Zelda. Ugh,
yeah. Oh god,
ugh,
Yeah.
no.
that sounds awful.
Who'd be left?
But I think people
like,
do-
I like the charm that is
Right.
very unique to them. You know, when you're walking, even like Majora's Mask, which is considered the darkest one probably. You walk around and people are dancing all goofy and they just I like the personality that you find in those games. I don't want them to
totally
take that
agree.
away,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. So, oh no.
No, I was
please,
going to say
go
one
ahead.
last thing, and I think because of the absence of that, or Zelda entirely in this, aside from the 3DS games, and the fact that Metroid has been sort of kicked to the side, and we're getting a version of Metroid that's like chibi, cartoony. I'm okay with it because I played it, and I'm like, this could be all right. It's obviously not going to satiate my craving for a new Metroid Prime.
Samus game.
A Samus
Yeah.
game, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, people look to Samus as basically that's the more mature. It's isolated. You're in space. It's darker themes, kind of stuff like that. And so we're not getting that there. So you are sort of getting that like kind of quirky, eccentric Nintendo for a full hour of their direct, which I can be okay with. But I think what people were looking for were some of the more stuff that appeals to the Western audience.
Just
Right.
the surprises. I mean, I feel like that was ultimately what we took away from it, right? Just the surprise and delight, right?
Hey,
Like, just
Federation
catch
Force
people
was a
off.
surprise. It might not be a good surprise, but it was a
No,
surprise.
I agree with
Yeah.
that, and the gigantic hissy fit on the internet over
Oh,
that game
God.
has me a bit concerned because I agree that the trailer was a poor way to communicate what that
Yeah.
game was.
I agree.
But I'm not ready to write it off just yet. And
Yeah.
I don't think if you're listening to this, you necessarily should just yet. Like, yes, you have every reason to be disappointed that you didn't get a Samus game announced at E3. I think that you're 100% allowed to do that. I don't even have to tell you you're allowed to do that. But to hold against this game, Federation Force, which is coming from a proven developer in Next Level Games, which is coming from the producer of that series, Tanabe, and crucify it for that seems really ridiculous to me.
agree.
It really
Yeah.
does. And,
I think
you know,
I think it's childish
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
immature to sort of like to see how many downvotes a YouTube video can get.
yeah,
for, I mean,
and how many didn't say anything? You
Right,
know, when you look
right.
at those numbers, of course the downvote is disappointing, and again, fine, whatever. But how many had nothing to say who watched those videos?
yeah, I think there's like vote with your wallet. Like there's easier ways to send that message, and I don't always even agree with what I just said, but I don't think that that's a good way to send a message because like if you're going to do that, then you better go upvote every video they've ever uploaded of a game you do love, which I have a feeling people don't do.
Yeah.
And that's that
That's
sort
a
of
good
like
point.
that's that kind of Yelp mentality of being like, I just ate a bad meal at a restaurant. I hate it. And they're like, well, did you eat any good meals this month? Yeah, I did. Did you write reviews about them? No. Because I'm expected that things are going to be great and wonderful all the time, and negativity persists above all.
And I
that.
definitely
I
don't
agree
want to
with that.
act like
yeah.
I've never done that, or that the show has never done that. I mean, I feel like
50,000 of those downvotes were from you on different IPs.
oh yeah, absolutely. I was just like, all the
I hate
downvotes.
this. Just
Give
this
me
is the
all your
worst.
iPhones, iPads. Leave them right on this desk. Yeah. All right. Unless you had anything else to add, I wanted to move on to sort of talking about Japan. Actually, since we did so, did you have anything before
yeah,
that?
I think just to wrap it up, I do like that quirkiness that when they get eccentric, but it's interesting when it seems misplaced, like it's not in the right places. I know a lot of people were upset with Federation Force because it was just kind of like you're putting this in the wrong franchise, which I don't necessarily agree with, but yeah. So that's kind of how I feel about the Nintendo Direct or the digital event in general. Is kind of like, yeah, I get this, but I'm also kind of ambivalent about it. It just, I came away feeling weird and dissatisfying.
Well, I was saying this to Jose and Pear, but it was kind of like, hey, you get a new Metroid game, but it's multiplayer and it's on 3DS. Hey, you get a new Zelda game, but it's got no overworld and it's more like kind of mission based. Hey, you get a new Animal Crossing, but it's a party game. So it's kind of like we're getting cool things, but they're not exactly what we want. And they're not sitting next to the things that we really want.
Or at least they didn't do a good job of showing why we should want them.
Yeah.
There it is. All right, cool. Anyway. So then moving on to sort of that Japanese identity in Nintendo.
Yeah.
We've been playing some import games recently, specifically with both of you. I got to play Rhythm Tengoku the Best Plus.
Yes.
I think that's how they say it over there. No, Rhythm Tengoku. Yeah, right. Rhythm Tengoku the Best Plus, if you're unaware, is Rhythm Tengoku is the Japanese name for Rhythm Heaven, which is a series that is very near and dear to me, at least, because I'm a big fan of rhythm games, and I also am a big fan of WarioWare and of sort of that wacky, zany, charming, bite-sized sort of gameplay idea. So if you're unfamiliar with the series, it actually has come across the pond twice. So it started out on the Game Boy Advance. Unfortunately, that version never came here. On DS, it did, and it was sort of during that peak time, too, for the DS, where like anything that you can put on it would almost do well, or it was just full of crazy, quirky ideas. And then on Wii, during the tail end of the Wii's life, Rhythm Heaven Fever came over here. But this latest one that just came out in Japan is on 3DS. It is a collection of mini games from all of the prior ones, as well as I think it's like 30 plus new ones that they've sort of tinkered and made. And this is a game made by the WarioWare team. This is typically, and I'm pretty sure he's attached to it, a Yoshi sort of Sakamoto project, who coincidentally is related to Metroid. And we got a chance to play it in multiplayer. You guys got to sort of see. So set the table for people. What did multiplayer sort of task us to do? Why don't we start from there?
So first of all, I want to tell a quick story in that one of the reasons I really love this job is I get to work with awesome people like you guys. And, I was sitting there one day and Jose was kind of talking about, he was very excited. He was like a kid on Christmas being like, this came out in Japan this morning. I have my Japanese 3DS. I downloaded it first thing in the morning. And Jose kind of pulled me in a room, and he's, that I still have that sort of I'm in high school, and when I get pulled in the room, I'm in trouble kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that'll never go away because I'm just I'm a 30-something-year-old juvenile delinquent. So Jose pulls me in a room, and he goes, hey, I just wanted to let you play Rhythm Heaven with me. And he pulls out 2 3DSs and he hands me one. He's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to play all these different mini games. And they're all like, I play a lot of games like Bloodborne and, GTA and Batman.
More recently. Yeah.
Very dark, serious, kind of brooding games. And GTA has its comical elements. But Rhythm Heaven is probably the most I've laughed playing a video game in quite some time, and it's got that very weird. I love WarioWare games. I don't know how many times I've stated that in this show. Like I played every single one of them to death. I love them like crazy. I unlock all the weird, quirky little toys and mini games in them. I go through and 100% all of them as much as I can. And this really scratched that itch for me. And it's a game that you're playing together with somebody. It is rhythm based, but don't think of it like it's DDR or or Guitar Hero. It's more of like you are playing a kind of quirky puzzle game that is set to a rhythm, and in your button presses and taps and stuff like that, you are trying to accomplish getting a basically perfect percentage. And
you're on beat, right?
Yeah.
You're a metronome.
And you're playing with somebody else, and the way that it's basically a metronome game, and that metronome is set to multiple weird themes, like
speeds.
And speeds.
Yeah.
And it does weird things where it basically goes, all right, we're gonna give you a quick tutorial, like a bird's gonna fly by, and right before it hits the window, you have to hit the A button, and you're like, oh, I got that. So it's like 1, 2, 3, smash. And then you go and you actually play it, and they mess with the speeds. Like they chop and screw it here and there. So it'll be like 1, 2, 3, smash. And you're tapping the A button. You're like, damn it. And you're yelling. So Jose and I did one where you're 2 sumo wrestlers.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah. And there's like a left stomp, a right stomp, and then there's this like pose. And in very simple animations, they do this really wonderful thing where you're this giant sumo wrestler, right? He shouldn't be doing the poses he's doing because they're like on his tippy toes or whatever. And it just looks like it's killing him. And if you missed by like half a second, the sumo wrestler, it goes into this pose where instead of being confident, he's nervous and sweating. And he's just like, I'm going to fall in it. Like he's holding his breath, but he's like, I know a bunch of people are watching me. I don't want to screw this up. So there's this really good kind of push and pull to the joy of that. And then knowing that I think that, I didn't do so great on the first few, and I got better and better and got the rhythm of it all, like no pun intended.
Yeah.
And I think that's very wonderful to have that sort of co-op feel to it, of we're working together, but we can also kind of screw each other over.
Yeah.
And it's really, really fun. I really hope it comes here.
Yep.
Yeah. And when Jose pulled me into the room and played it, I was laughing so hard that I kept screwing up. Because a lot of it, like there's one that you showed me that I forget exactly what it was. It was dancers, and you're in a line of dancers or something.
Oh,
if
yes,
you screw
yes,
up, they
yes.
all side-eye you.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's
get
Frog Hop.
yourself together.
Yeah, if you Google Rhythm Heaven and then Frog Hop, I believe is the name of the minigame, because it was in the DS version of the game. That's right. You are one of 4 performers on stage, or one of 6 actually, but in a row of 4.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah, I intentionally didn't do anything, and when I got bumped, they all looked at me like,
they side-eye you. Like,
Well,
you need to get yourself together because we are performing right now.
Yeah.
And it's
Damn.
just cute.
Yeah.
It's just... I was laughing super hard at the sumo one because it's a couple different speeds, right? And I kept screwing it up, and like Jose's just slapping me in the face because I need to get into the rhythm. That was really fun.
I didn't physically do that. That's me.
Not in real life. No.
I'm laughing
In the
while
game.
she says it. No, but to go back to Frog Hop for a second, I do think that multiplayer is really smart in that it creates a social, like real life version of that. So in multiplayer, you're both playing the same minigame, but you are playing it separately. But you're on the same beats and on the same timing. And the way they indicate success is that they show icons for all the players involved on screen at the corners. So it's up to 4 players. We've been playing it as 2 because we don't have that many import units in the office. And when let's say Brian hits a perfect beat, it'll highlight his portrait with a gold like sort of circle around it, meaning, okay, he's really on beat right now. You should be aware of that. And when Brian messes up, it changes that highlight for a blue circle, which means he just missed the beat.
It shames you, basically.
Yeah, it basically shames you to everyone else who's playing.
Everybody else.
So the fun part of it is that in multiplayer, you have to both basically hit a certain threshold for the score. The score has to be high enough for you to be able to complete it.
Combined score gets you past that
and so when I see Brian's messing up, I'm just like, yo, get it together over there. Like, what's going on?
I failed us out at one point because I just couldn't figure. I forget which one it was, but I just failed us out of it.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could fail out.
It makes you want to get different friends.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, Jose's never gonna want to talk to me again after this.
No,
but
not at
it's
all.
got that really awesome, like, it's got that charm of WarioWare that comes from being like confident in its randomness. Like, which WarioWare was always just like, it would be like dun 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 dun, and then all of a sudden it'd be like a girl's snot coming out of her nose, and you're like, what do I do? And you hit the A button, and it goes back up her nose, and you're like, I won, and it goes dun, 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 it goes to the next thing. Like, it's awesome. I love that. It's got that. It's got that really stupid, goofy, random energy to it.
Yeah.
And I love like watching little things like that. Just watching like the faces and the frogs were really funny. You know?
And mechanically, I think it is very smart in that it teaches you the very basic things of a song. So I started you both on the same minigame, which is one that you control 2 players. One you control with the A button to catch. The other you use the D-pad to catch. And you can press any side of the D-pad, doesn't matter. But the concept of this particular stage is that fruit is falling down a pair of steps in a certain beat on a specific beat, and you have to catch it out of the air at the right beat.
Yeah.
And what this Rhythm Heaven game does better than I think any Rhythm Heaven that came before it is that Rhythm Heaven was always a game that it was absolutely that, right? It is a metronome. You have to be on beat in order to succeed, but it was never good at telling you why you were bad at that.
Yeah.
So, for example, in training, it would say, okay, hit on this beat, and you would just basically sit there until you got it right and you satisfied the 3 times they wanted you to get it right.
Sure.
And it would sit there as long as it took until you did that. So it wasn't really teaching you, it wasn't bridging the skill gap for you of, hey, you're missing by this much. On this version of the game, the bottom touchscreen, they sort of have a flourish that pops up that if it's to the left, you're early. If it's to the right, you're late on the beat. And if it's right in the center, it's actually the biggest sort of explosion it can be. And it's like a rainbow. It looks like a firework. And through that, it communicates.
I didn't get many of those.
Hey, it communicates, hey, you're right on beat and you're right on time. But the cute thing was, going back to the basics, is that they trained you both the same way. Like, here's an orange going down the step and it falls at a certain speed. Here's a pineapple falling down the steps and it falls at a much slower speed.
Yeah.
But then in the song, they drop 2 fruits on you.
Yeah.
And you both had the same reaction of, what do I do right now? But then it dawns on you, well, I can catch with both sides, so
Yep.
that's okay. And then they take it to the next step where the pineapples, which are slower, are offbeat, where it's like
that
1,
screwed
2,
me up.
1, 2, and you both again had the same reaction. So this seems like a lot of description, and I apologize for that, but I do want to sell to the folks at home that like this is a really, really fun thing if you've ever been into rhythm games or if you've been into WarioWare. And the DS version exists, so you can check that out. The Wii version exists. Your Wii U probably can play it if you can find it, and it was pretty cheap. I mean, when they sold Rhythm Heaven Fever, it was like $30, I want to say, because it's not, you know, sort of a $50 game. But I will say that this one, lastly, is that outside of teaching you how to be better at rhythm, I think the thing that it does really well is that they put a campaign to it, which sounds ridiculous, right? You're just like, why are you putting a campaign to a game that it's about rhythm and it's about wacky rhythm games that have nothing to do with each other? If you think about it, like what is a cat and a dog in two airplanes playing
Ping pong.
yeah, they're playing ping pong.
Badminton,
I forgot.
I
Yeah,
think it was.
badminton.
Yeah.
Have to do with a guy, a wolf who's chopping wood.
I played that one too.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
none
It's
of
so
that
weird.
has anything to do with each other. But what they do with the campaign is that every couple of stages, they introduce these 3 bosses that'll come out, and it's easy, medium, or hard. And the game that they present is based on a rhythm toy, which the series has always had, but you never had an incentive to really check that stuff out, and there wasn't a ton of value to it. And they work it in so that all of these things that they've been doing for years are now part of one game, and you get to experience them, and you get to find out how much fun they are. And lastly, they don't punish you too long for it. So let's say on one of those boss challenges, you are terrible. You just cannot pass it. After 4 failures, they'll just let you by. They'll go, you know what? That sucks, but here you go. Why
Kind of
don't
wish
you
more
move on
video
to the
games
next
did
thing?
that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and not shame you for it.
So-
No frustration. Yeah.
So let's like bring in a little bad news. This hasn't been announced for America
Yeah.
or
Right.
anywhere outside of Japan yet, right?
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
But on the plus side, with their sort of digital landscape now, I have a feeling that there's a game like this has a better chance of coming than maybe it did a few years ago.
I hope so. I hope they have the confidence to do it. And I was talking to Kallie about this, and I may have mentioned this to you as well. I just hope when Rhythm Heaven 3DS gets announced, that the localization hand does not change too much of the Japanese-ness of this game.
Yeah, because there's like a calligraphy class mini game, and
Yes.
it's all in
Oh,
kanji.
yeah,
It's in kanji, and the thing that's cool about that is like kanji have to be written in a certain order.
Yep.
So if you know how to write them, you know what's coming. And I don't see that really working with like Latin alphabets.
Yeah,
Like
you
the-
lose
it's-
that with
but
like
it
the
also
letter
goes
A.
over our head culturally.
Yeah.
But I feel like to have the confidence to most of that very heavy Japanese referencing that I've noticed from my experience with the series was either in the GBA one that we never got or in this one. And the ones in between, for the most part, I didn't notice it as much. I just hope that when localization sits down, if localization sits down to address this, that they don't go in and go, okay, well, we have to change all of this so it's more culturally relevant. I feel like the zaniness of it sells it. Like I don't think it matters. I think people will still jump into some of that stuff and appreciate it. Now, in Rhythm Heaven DS, for example, they changed one song from its Japanese lyrics, and it was a Japanese pop song, to English. And it wasn't bad. Like, that's a case where I was okay with that. That makes total sense. No one's going to understand it if she's speaking another language.
Right.
And if you have to do that, do it. But in the sumo minigame that we were talking about earlier, if they become football players, I'm going to riot. Like, I would be really upset about that because I feel like, yeah, sure, we don't get sumo here. We don't understand the cultural significance of that. But this minigame works so well because of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that get lost or lose a chance to introduce people to sort of that wacky, zany Japanese humor.
And also on a technical level, like it raises the barrier for how long it would take that game to come here. You know,
Right.
Like for every time somebody has to redraw a football player instead of a sumo wrestler, like that's another week we're not getting the game or whatever. Like I would say strip out the Japanese text where it becomes sort of part of interface or menu, but keep it where it makes sense narratively inside the video game, like the kanji stuff. I can't imagine them just putting like the letter G or something and somebody drawing it in a certain way. Like there's something to that energy of like the brushstroke to the rhythm and stuff like that. That's really cool. Like I wouldn't want to see that lost.
Yeah, maybe there's a way to turn it into a teachable moment. I'm sorry, you were going to say.
I just wanted to you mentioned taking out the Japanese script, and that just reminded me, like, we are able to play this game without speaking enough Japanese.
Right.
And And so that's a testament to how well it teaches you how to play. Because I can read Kana, I can kind of get through. I knew that we were on a train. I read the word train. I was like, okay, cool, I got this. But the instructions, I couldn't get all of that. I don't know kanji. And it does a really good job of teaching you how to play. So that's something that I noticed mechanically is really strong.
Yeah, and I adore the series for that. Like for me, it's like this really interesting puzzle and mishmash of when you can really test if game design can stand without context.
Right.
And this game does a really good job of that. And that's why I've always admired it. That's why it will always be one of my favorites. That's why I really kind of get defensive when people call it stupid, because I'm just like, I think you're missing the point on this one. Like, it is a really fun, very different minigame.
Do they mean stupid in a bad way? Because it is kind of stupid, but that's why I love it.
It's like random and stupid and wonderful.
Yeah, I love it for that.
You saw my reaction. There's one where you're in a group of people and you have to go on beat and then off beat.
Right.
Oh, lockstep. Yeah. That is notoriously hard.
But it's really hard, and I knew that I would screw it up. But I didn't even try playing it. I was showing her like some of the crazier stuff. They were flashing up random Beethoven portraits, and you saw me react. I was like, what is this? And that's the best part is I did not expect that. I love the randomness. It's meant to distract you and try to keep you on the rhythm, but if they took that away, it would really detract from what is so good about Rhythm Heaven.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just you play a random mini game. It's so unrelated to another one. It's all random. It's all weird, and I really like that.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some news, and then we're going to wrap up a little early this week, but don't you worry, we still got a great show for you. More when we come back, or return, or something.
Listen!
And welcome back. Jose Otero here with Brian Altano and Kallie Plagge.
Hello.
And just quickly on the news front, I only have one story I really want to talk about today, which is that this week, Nintendo put sort of a statement out saying that Fire Emblem Fates will have same-sex relationships. Now, this is a big deal, especially after you consider sort of the response and the negative reaction that a game earlier this year was released, Tomodachi Life.
Was that this year?
Oh man, that was last year actually. I'm living in a war.
What's time?
Yeah, it was last year. What is time?
I got really scared for a second. This is the longest year of my life.
Yep. So just to jump to the portion of their statement that addresses this specifically before I go into something else, quote, "We believe that our gameplay experiences should reflect the diversity of the communities in which we operate. And at the same time, we will always design the game specifications of each title by considering a variety of factors, such as the game's scenario and the nature of the gameplay. In the end, of course, the game should be fun to play. We feel that Fire Emblem Fates is indeed enjoyable to play, and we hope that fans like the game." Not the biggest statement, just ending note on that statement on diversity, but still the fact that I mean, we're happy about this.
It's
right?
baby steps.
Absolutely.
Like always, it's baby steps. And I think it's only 1 out of 30 characters actually has that option.
Yeah, slight spoiler for people in that there is one character in each of the campaigns. So there's 2 campaigns. I'll give you a second to run away if you didn't want to be spoiled. So the Conquest edition of the game, and then there's the Birthright edition of the game, which is also interesting because this is the first time they're actually talking about, in the US, this is going to ship in 2 flavors with a 3rd downloadable campaign. If you remember, there was a big brouhaha over when Japan got that information, and we did not, and they were not being very clear about it. So this press release sort of does that, or this information does that. And basically, there's a female character in Birthright edition that can be attracted to or marry another female character, and in the Conquest edition, it's the same thing with males.
Yeah, I think the importance of this, not only as part of a medium, but coming from a company like Nintendo that's historically traditional and Japanese, is it's a pretty big story, and I think it's a good first step. Like we saw even at E3. There were female protagonists in a ton of Nintendo games. There were also
or even other companies' games, but
even other companies' games,
Nintendo too.
Yeah,
super
Nintendo
notable.
too. Like it's all over the place, and it's really cool to see. Like it's
Link in a dress.
Yeah,
that was really cool.
Yeah,
that was super cool.
That's great.
And the dress, it actually gives him powers. It's not just a pretty dress because in a lot of games when you put on a dress, it's like nothing. It's not armor. It's not anything.
Yeah.
This one, it does things.
It's
so
actually
exciting.
It does more than your regular clothes do, which do nothing.
I know.
Yeah, but on that one, I feel like there is a missed opportunity on that specific example, though. Not just to push back slightly, because Triforce Heroes, to me so far, and we talked to the director about this. I'm actually going to run a story on IGN about it soon. But we talked to the director about a lot of the design of this game feels very inspired by sort of like Monster Hunter games, like big MMO franchises, where you're getting material, you're constructing outfits, and you're using those outfits in a dungeon in a world. And yet you don't give folks the chance to choose if they want to be a male or a female. It's just Link in a dress.
That is a good point.
Yeah,
I think it's, you know, like you said, it's baby steps. I appreciate any form of progress.
Yeah, but and I'm sorry, I didn't want to like sour because I think you made a good point.
You made a good point too. But I mean,
but we pressed them on that, and I plan to run that story next week.
Yeah, like there's that push and pull, right? Like I mean, Zelda's only really been, outside of Hyrule Warriors, where the main boss of that game is basically a pair of tits. Like seriously, like that's as many steps forward as they're taking by putting female playable characters in that game. Like there is a old dead archetype of misogyny as the main boss.
Yeah.
On the flip side, you have Zelda, who is playable in which Zelda 3 Spirit Tracks.
Yeah.
But she's dead the whole time.
Yeah.
So that doesn't
playable.
help.
She's just with you.
She is. You solve puzzles in conjunction with her.
And stuff,
so I agree with you in that. Like I agree with you both that it would have been cool to be like, here's Link and Impa and Zelda, and they're all on a track together.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, that would be ideal.
Yeah,
and the way options. I pushed this in the interview was just that so far what I've seen of the story doesn't seem to just suggest that Link needs to be a male in this game. Versus, like I get with maybe more traditional Zelda games why they would stick to that trope, but in this specific instance where a mysterious event happens and the kingdom just needs heroes, why can't there also be heroines?
Right. It's not really about that whole
point.
Like old hero princess archetype anymore.
Yeah, that's something that continues to bother me in games is when it's inexplicable, like why can't this character be female? There's no reason why. And that kind of ties into Fire Emblem we were talking about because I see comments where people are like, well, why are they just forcing homosexuality into this? And I'm like, well, I mean, you could spin it around and say, well, they're forcing straightness into this when you have to get married or whatever. Like you could spin it any way, and I think it's great that they're taking that step.
No, yeah, likewise. No, I completely agree. All right. Lastly, let's go into, yes, very well said. Lastly, let's go into some question block questions. We have time for one, unfortunately, because we gotta go.
Let's do it.
So I'm gonna pick a good one.
Here we go.
All right, so this one comes from Matt, listener of the show, and it's a little long, so I'm gonna try and condense this as much as I can. I don't think many people would deny that Mario Kart 8's DLC was some of the best value we've seen for paid add-on content. Don't disagree with that at all, Matt. For $12, you get literally almost 50% of more content for the base game. It's really seemed like Nintendo was going to set a new standard for the way they handle DLC. But then Smash Brothers seems to go against that. So he's bringing up that the new DLC pack, if I just want the stages and characters for one version of the game, it will cost $16. That's only 3 characters, only one of which is new, and 2 stages. If I want the costume as well, that's close to $22. Then I want to parity with the 3DS version for everything, and we're taking an extra $1 per add-on. We're talking an extra $1 per add-on. I think it adds up to close to $30.
It's like $29.50 or something.
Okay, got it. So he basically is upset by this. What happened here? I suppose the pricing is on par or even better than other fighting games, but when you compare it to the amazing value that was offered with Mario Kart, just seems really skewed. Am I alone on this?
No, it is. You're absolutely right. It felt way more like a sort of Warner Brothers, Ubisoft, Game of the Year, retail exclusive, all that sort of like when you went to go buy Watch Dogs or something and it was, there were 75 different versions of it. Right. It felt like that where they're sort of piecemealing out character skins and costumes and items and weapons and stuff like that. And I don't want to say it's very un-Nintendo, because
they haven't been doing this long enough to say that.
They don't have a precedence long enough.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say he's right in that the Mario Kart set the bar really high for the way you deliver a content package like that. And I'm a little bummed out that it came out to be so much. I also thought it was weird that they went as far as to charge 99 cents for or $1 for the 3DS controller app, which lets you play Smash Brothers
without purchasing the game.
Yeah. I think it's a little much to just let you use a device you've already purchased. Like, I think Smash Brothers are getting a little off the rails in terms of DLC.
And if there's one game it feels like they're willing to push that and see what they can get, it makes sense to me that it be Smash Brothers versus another one, just because that fan base seems to really want more content for it. But I don't know what the the thinking is behind the pricing. Like, I'm not saying it's terrible, but I do agree that it does seem a bit much, especially when you add up sort of what you're getting. But it's always hard to do that, right? I feel it's always hard to sort of look at content and say, well, how much is this worth? You know, and when you think about it in Smash Brothers, adding extra pieces like that does change the way that game plays to a degree. It does sort of alter either the state of balance, or there just seems to be a lot more work involved. And than maybe making a course in Mario Kart.
Yeah, that's fair, I think. Yeah.
And it takes work to make those things, you know. And obviously, most of them are optional. I mean, I would argue that somebody like Ryu is not optional. Like, if you're a Smash Brothers guy, like, you want all the characters. I don't know if you want all the Mii Fighter skins. Like, that's the thing you can probably skip out on.
Right.
But those incentives become better to purchase one thing when they're bundled with other things. And that's the reason I bought all of them, even if I'll never even use them all. It was sort of just like, well, now I don't have to think about buying these down the line. You know, if one day I wake up and I'm like, I really wish I had a Tekken character skin for my Miiverse guy. Like, I already have him now, even though I'll probably never use it. But that's what we call digital hoarding. And it's just as bad as physical hoarding.
I'm on that train too. I have friends who are pretty into the competitive Smash scene, and I think that adding new characters does give you more options, and with a fighting game, it does alter the balance of the game, and it does take work. And I don't know enough about the actual work involved to say what I think the pricing should be for that. It is very, very asynchronous with Mario Kart. It's just strange. I feel like people would want these extra characters and be able to kind of re-examine their strategies and stuff for competitive play, but I don't need $30 worth of extra Smash Bros. Like, it's and all the skins and all that, it seems like a lot.
No, it does, yeah. And I think at the end of the day, for anyone listening to this who agrees, I think that then it falls on you to just not buy it, you know, and to sort of push back by not supporting it. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I will
Brian.
openly admit, like, no, I did it too.
I screwed up.
How could you?
You're right.
I did
you
it too.
100% right. 100% right.
And it kind of slipped under the radar, I feel, with E3 that maybe the pricing on this was too high. But at the same time, I do feel that it is, and maybe folks are going to disagree with me on this, but I'm sorry. But I do feel that it's good that Nintendo is sort of testing those waters and pushing those boundaries, because I don't think everything deserves to be 99 cents. And I don't think everything deserves to be as devalued as, you know, sort of the App Store and all these other, like, sort of places that we get our games make us think. Do I think that the pricing they settled on was perfect? Absolutely not. But I also think that at the end of the day, Nintendo should challenge the value of some of those things.
Sure, because I mean, the 99-cent skin is also a $1 iPhone game, or it's $5 for a character could probably buy you an entire other game at GameStop or something. Like, money's all over the place when it comes to gaming, and there's no like what you deem valuable for $1 or $5 or $10 skews based on which perspective that's coming from.
You could buy some good indie games with that money and have it. It depends on what you value.
Yeah,
right? And
totally.
I think it's fair to say, you know, they're allowed to push the boundaries and decide what is a fair price for this. I agree that it's not ideal, but I mean, it is based on what you yourself value as far as what your purchases are, right?
Yep.
Like, I would rather buy, you know, a $10 indie game and play that than, you know, skins and new fighters. That's just me. Like, that's, you know, it's your choice whether you want to buy it or not. So.
And you couldn't help but look at that when you added up all the stuff you were getting in Mario Kart, you did feel like, holy cow, this is a great deal.
Right.
I want to admit, I have not done the math to add up all this stuff and see if the bundle price is that much cheaper than what it would have cost. I would imagine there is some savings there, but it doesn't sound like it's enough when it's $30 for all of that stuff. But then again, there's also a lot of licensing involved in this thing.
Yeah,
you have
that's true.
Ryu from Capcom. You have the Virtual Fighter guys. You have the Tekken lookalikes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that stuff costs money at the end of the day. So my thing to folks, just don't buy it. If you see this on the next one and you're not satisfied by that, by all means, step away and push back that way. And maybe that encourages them to then make some changes and some decisions. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, there you have it. That is this week's Nintendo Voice Chat. And next week, we'll have Pear back on the show. And we'll still have a ton of stuff to talk about, which sadly we couldn't get to this week. For example, there was a Nintendo investors meeting that I would love to talk about, but we just don't have the time. But
there's Super Mario Maker, which comes with 100 levels. I can't wait to talk about that.
Oh my god! All right,
awesome.
quickly, go for it.
No, that's
levels.
awesome. That's more levels than any Mario game has ever come with, which is amazing. I think it's like 10 or 12 more than Super Mario World, which is seen to most as one of the best Mario games ever made.
Sure.
And that's if you never even connect to the internet internet. Never make your own levels. Never download a single
right.
other stage. There's 100 totally insane stages, and we got to play. I mean, in the playable version in E3, I want to say there was like 40 or 50 of them, maybe more than that, maybe less.
Okay.
And there's just a really awesome variety there. So without doing a thing, Mario Maker is right off the bat probably going to be one of the best Mario games ever made.
Oh, I'm super excited about
Yep.
it. No pun intended. I didn't mean to do that, but yeah, very, very promising. I loved watching it at E3. I'm very excited.
It gets better every time we hear about it.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I can't wait.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. That is Nintendo Voice Chat for the week of June 25th. And as always, we thank you for supporting the show. But we are not the only show on IGN. In fact, this weekend, the IGN house party is real. Brian Altano and the crew from Beyond, along with Ryan McCaffrey and the crew from Unlocked.
That's right.
We're going to be throwing a big party. Of course, some NVC folk will be there in attendance to support because you guys deserve that support. But it'll be a big deal. It's happening.
It's happening tomorrow morning. That's Saturday morning. It starts at 11:30, and you can find. I think there might be a few tickets left.
Okay.
If you're in the neighborhood and you want to get on that, like now is your final chance.
It's go.ign.com/houseparty.
That's
there
right.
You go.
Yeah.
And more than a celebration of the anniversaries of our podcasts, we have podcasts Unlocked, episode 200, Podcast Beyond, episode 400. This is really a celebration of our audience, and it's just how awesome it is that we can bring the world together with what we do, and to thank you guys for listening. So we just want to hang out and tell jokes and tell stories and high five and hug and take pictures and just be cool together, because this is like what it's all about.
Yeah, no, we definitely appreciate all of your support. So if you're in SF and you already got tickets, great. If you are in SF and you don't have tickets, check
Leave
it out.
now, drive.
You might be able to find those. All right. So then lastly, you can leave us feedback by emailing us at nvc@ign.com. And also, you can go on over to iTunes, leave us a show review, let us know what you think. Lastly, you can find us on Twitter. You can find Brian Altano at
Agent Bizzle.
You can find Kallie Plagge at
Inky Dodiko.
Spell it.
INKYDOJIKKO. It's Japanese, sorry.
Is that a Splatoon reference, or you did that before
told
Splatoon?
you this
I've had
story.
it for
I
a
know.
while. It's like the clumsy girl anime trope. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Very clumsy.
All right, there we go. And I am at Jose_Otero on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening, and we will be back next week with more Nintendo Voice Chat.